Welcome back to Tomorrow on Track. I'm Patrick Ziechmann, PwC's Automotive ASEAN Leader, and today we are turning our attention to one of the fastest growing economies in the world and what its automotive story means for the rest of Asia. With me today is Kavan Mukhtyar, PwC's Automotive India Leader, who has lived and worked in Malaysia for 10 years between 2004 and 2015. I would like to discuss with him where the industry is heading and what it means for consumers, businesses, and the region. A warm welcome to you, Kavan, and thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much, Patrick, and I'm delighted to be back in Malaysia.
Well, before we actually dive into the questions, I would really love to hear from you what your impressions were from our second ASEAN Automotive and Mobility Conference and how you perceived that.
I think the conference was extremely vibrant, a lot of active participation from the ASEAN industry. We had participants from all over ASEAN, and clearly PwC has done a fantastic job in contributing to the ecosystem and bringing very rich interaction in the conference, which hopefully will set the path for the future direction of the industry, both here in Malaysia as well as around ASEAN.
Thank you very much for these encouraging and nice words. But before we now go into the questions, maybe we share some macroeconomic figures with our audience to make them more familiar with India and also in comparison to Malaysia. So, population in India.
1.4 billion people now. We are the most populated country in the world.
You are very proud of it, as it sounds.
We are very productive, I must say.
Yes, and so we are 34 million people here in Malaysia. And what's your GDP?
GDP is almost touching 4 trillion US dollars, and it's grown at a very healthy pace over the last decade or so.
Yeah, and I believe you are among the top 5 economies globally, right?
Absolutely. In fact, the top 4 economy, and our GDP has been growing at a pretty healthy pace of almost 6 to 7%. Our per capita income has gone up substantially to almost 2,500 US dollars, and inflation is under control. So lots of positive trends. One of the big things in India is the huge investments that is happening in infrastructure, which is also helping the automotive industry in many ways.
Yeah. And this compares to a GDP in Malaysia of roughly 470 billion US dollar. Our growth is around 5%. Our GDP per capita already US dollar 13,000, and our automotive share of the GDP is 5%, which I think compares to 7% in India, right?
Absolutely. And one of the other unique things about the auto industry in India is accounts for almost half of the manufacturing GDP. So the auto industry in many ways creates a lot of linkages to raise the capability of the manufacturing sector in the country and gives lots of blue collar jobs.
Yeah, interesting. But I think when it comes to the growth engine, currently it's still the domestic demand, right?
Absolutely. With 1.4 billion people, there is lots of domestic demand. But obviously, as the affluence grows in the country, there is almost a pyramid in the automotive context, with volumes beginning first with two-wheelers or motorcycles, then people migrating to small cars, and eventually to mid-segment cars. So yeah, all good. We just have to make sure that the industry has the right kind of enablement, and I think the demand will make sure that growth continues to happen.
Now let's dive into the automotive industry a little bit further. I was really impressed to see in India when I visited it both this year and last year that India has really achieved a complete automotive ecosystem. Yeah, you have everything in the country, from automotive steel, mechanical engineering, metal plastic parts, a huge tire industry as well, and it extends all the way into automotive design and also software defined vehicles, software engineering for automotive. So, Kavan, from your perspective, how has India really achieved that, and also within just a few years, actually?
Yeah, so the Indian auto story started sometime in 1984 when the government started the first project with Suzuki. And, there was, of course, demand because as economic development was happening, there was need for people to have access to good mobility. So there was demand, but it was at a very, very aggressive price point given the affordability that Indians had. And I think in that context, the localization policy of the government of India, which until date they continue to pursue, has really helped the entire ecosystem build out. Clearly, the growing demand and the population in the country attracted foreign investors to come in and set up base in India. They had to set up a local manufacturing capability, not just assembling, simply because there were high import duties, and the cost of logistics in India does not make it viable for someone to just import vehicles, that too at scale. So I think that's where the story started. And as these OEMs entered India, they played the role of a catalyst, almost really hand-holding the tier one suppliers and component suppliers to go ahead and build their capabilities, take them, teach them almost how to do manufacturing. And then, now we are seeing that there are almost 10 plus Indian owned auto component suppliers. There are almost $1 billion plus and in revenues. And they are not just supplying to customers locally, but they are supplying to customers around the world. So I think the auto OEMs have done a fantastic job in building the ecosystem. And clearly the government policy was also a strong enabler in this journey. But like you very rightly said, right now Indian automotive ecosystem is pretty much self-sufficient with abilities to design, manufacture cars. Also, tier one auto component industry is very robust, especially when it comes to mechanical engineering parts. One area where there is weakness in the supply chain is clearly in electronics and semiconductors. And I see there is a lot of room for collaboration there with Malaysia and other countries who have this as a strong capability. EV components is another area where there is some opportunities for global companies to come and partner with India. But the business model for India clearly is that you have to set up shop locally because the import duties and the cost economics ensure that you have to be locally present. The other very interesting area of the Indian ecosystem is the global capability centers. The top 20 auto OEMs as well as component suppliers all have set up development centers in India. On recent count, there are about 150,000 engineers that are based in India but are doing global work. So that really has given the right kind of transfer of knowledge to the Indian industry, and it will definitely help as the whole journey towards autonomous vehicles and software-defined vehicles is going through.
Yeah. Well, this is impressive. Thanks for sharing. And we talk a lot about case megatrends, right? Connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. How do these megatrends shape the daily experience of owning and using a car already in India? And how would you think does this differ to other territories?
So clearly, one of the key unique things about the Indian market is it's very, very value conscious. So whenever you offer new technology, the first obstacle really is that at what price points. So I would say, India is in early stage of adoption of, connected and electric technologies in particular. Of course, as regards autonomous, we really don't have much of autonomous vehicles in the country, but at some point there would be level 1, level 2 capabilities of autonomous that may be made available in luxury vehicles. As regards connected, today every Indian passenger vehicle that is sold comes with the onboard diagnostic capability, and it generates a lot of data. And for the first few years, generally we see the OEMs giving connected features for free. But then when it switches back to being a paid service, that's where we see a lot of dropping off. So I would say it's in an early stage of adoption, but the technology is there. And at some point in time, as more services, digital services get pushed through it, I think consumers will adopt that. One area where we are seeing a lot of traction is shared mobility. Given the Indian cities, especially the top cities, top 20 cities, there's a lot of investments happening in metros. And given the traffic conditions, we are seeing the younger generation in particular being absolutely fine with not owning vehicles and using shared mobility, including shared passenger vehicle as well as motorcycle mobility. So that's something which is an interesting trend, and at some point of time it will have some impact on the auto industry. As regards electrification, we are at the early stage of that journey, but definitely there is some good traction. And right now, if you look at BEV vehicles, which is pure battery electric vehicles, that's about 3.5 to 4% of the entire vehicle sales. But by FY30, it's expected that this may go up to about 10 to 15%. In addition, strong hybrid in particular are getting good acceptance in the market. And if you add that in, then the percentage penetration of XEVs would be in the region of about 15 to 20% over the next few years. So that's the story now. But definitely with the oil crisis right now, I believe there will be a faster shift to electric vehicles, and it's a segment definitely to watch out for. And all key OEMs are launching several new models in battery electric vehicles as well as strong hybrids.
Yeah, very interesting. And this compares to just recently 11% XEV adoption in Malaysia in the last quarter already. And we are targeting here definitely 20% of XEV adoption by 2030. To be honest, with the last pickup, and also, as you mentioned, with regard to the oil crisis because of the crisis in the Middle East, I think that we will actually exceed this. And in the region of ASEAN countries, ASEAN 6 countries, we have already achieved 26% XEV adoption, which includes, as you say, the hybrids and the pure battery electric cars. And I think this is even growing further. So if we move forward, and we have seen that Malaysia has also established a strong automotive industry. 5% of our GDP is generated through the automotive industry. And it first came through the Japanese OEMs, then also the European OEMs came into the market, and just recently and increasingly the Chinese player. But Malaysia hasn't positioned itself as a real automotive hub in the region or even globally. It's missing the automotive steel. We are still importing this, and the deeper automotive R&D, and more importantly also the software engineering for the new software-defined vehicles. What would be your advice, knowing both industries and both countries, and maybe comment how to develop Malaysia's automotive industry even further?
I think Malaysia has done a phenomenal job in building a great foundation for the auto industry. I think the two national car projects ensured that there is manufacturing capabilities here, engineering capabilities here. So there is a strong foundation, but now is the time to really accelerate our contribution to the world automotive industry. And in my opinion, Malaysia should make some clear choices. For example, I believe that Malaysia will be very competitive when it comes to lower volume, higher value vehicles. And why don't we focus on, say, for example, luxury segment vehicles and have a specific policy to encourage the manufacturing of luxury vehicles in Malaysia within the ASEAN region and become the export hub. Quoting an example of how India's journey has been, India is pretty much a small car hub. Today we export almost 1 million units to rest of the world. These are cars that are made in India and exported to the world. So I do believe that if Malaysia picks luxury segment as well as maybe EV and hybrids as a focus area, I think we can then make that choice and say, okay, rest of ASEAN can make the other vehicles. We specialize in this area, and let us then build the entire ecosystem in this area of focus. The other key aspect that I'd like to highlight is I think it's important to have a vibrant local auto component manufacturing industry. I think in the conference a few days ago, we heard there are almost 400 plus Malaysia-based auto component suppliers. How can there be a policy to support their capability building journey? How can there be a focus on upskilling the Malaysian engineers, not just in terms of mechanical engineering, which is reasonably good, but also in terms of software and digital? I think those are some of the initiatives that are necessary to build a complete ecosystem. I think attracting investments, especially in the area of setting up global capability centers and becoming a knowledge center for global OEMs for doing software development in Malaysia would also be one of the attributes that one can look at very carefully.
That's very interesting. So basically focus and also new capabilities that the government might also support in its national automotive policy, which, by the way, was mentioned at our conference that it will be renewed or reviewed first and renewed and further developed by the end of this year. So we are expecting some new policies for the automotive industry in Malaysia, and I think your two advices here are very important. So
just one more point I'd like to add, Patrick. I think Malaysia also can be a hub for mobility startups. I think we have a reasonably favorable financial ecosystem where the government and private sector is funding startups. And even in the ASEAN region, I believe this is an area that is not being focused on. So that could be another aspect that Malaysia can really be known in the ASEAN region as well as in the world for.
This is a very, very good point as well, Kavan. Thank you very much for pointing this out. Earlier this year, Malaysia and India signed a couple of MOUs across sectors, including semiconductors. What are India's ambitions in the semiconductor area? Also with regard to semiconductor automotive integration? And where would you see meaningful opportunities to actually collaborate and work together?
I think clearly the trade and collaboration between Malaysia and India is right there. And there are cultural links that go way back in time. But there is a lot of headroom for doing more. In my opinion, we are just scratching the surface on how both these countries can benefit from each other's capabilities. Indian market has now grown in scale, and there are quite a few Indian-owned OEMs that are at scale. They are investing in Europe. They are investing around the world. Why don't we look at making them make investments in India? Both the auto OEMs as well as the component suppliers, automotive software companies. I think if they come in and invest here, there will be a great knowledge transfer, and local engineers as well as employees will be able to benefit from that. And it will really upgrade the skill levels within Malaysia, as well as India will benefit because now they will get access to the ASEAN market. I think the other clear area is semiconductors, where I think Malaysia is far ahead of India. And, this is an area where India is focusing on in a significant way. So Malaysian companies, especially in auto, electronics and semiconductors, can look at forming joint ventures in India, or maybe even setting up 100% subsidiaries in India to help build out this supply chain. In addition, I believe that India has some really good institutes and engineering schools where cutting edge technology is being taught. One can look at collaboration between Malaysian universities as well as Indian universities with focus on the automotive value chain, software in particular, because going forward, we all know cars are going to be computers on wheels. So definitely there is a need to upskill Malaysian talent to be world class. And that is where this kind of collaboration between Indian institutes and Malaysian institutes, facilitated by both the governments, could be a great step to really grow collaboration between these two countries.
Oh, I love this last part that you mentioned about education. I think you have 1 million software engineers graduating each year. Yeah, and if we would only be a fraction of that, yeah, this would already help the country moving into this new era where it's not about metal bending, but it's about the software in the car and in the automotive ecosystem. So to close and to come to an end, Kavan, and I really enjoy our discussion here, is there any final big bullet that you would like to mention if you think about the Malaysian automotive economy and how it can grow further?
As regards Malaysia, I think our biggest strength is that we are one of the largest passenger vehicle market in the ASEAN region. There is technology available. I think it's all about making investments in the right place and believing in the capability of the industry, harnessing it. I'm sure the revised NAP will look at all these dimensions and continue to invest further in building the automotive value chain. While the auto industry globally is going to be hyper competitive, but there will be need for mobility and greater investments are going to come through. There is a shift in the power center in many ways, and Chinese companies today are really world class. And I think Malaysia has already taken the first steps in collaborating with Chinese companies and making the market open to them. I think the key is not just for us to be a selling market, but also a market where vehicles are made, engineering capabilities are strong, auto component manufacturing is done, and also auto software development is done. If we do all these things, it's not just about selling in Malaysia, but it is also about building an industry that gives employment and prepares Malaysia to get its rightful place in the world automotive industry.
And I love how you identify yourself still with Malaysia, saying we, when you are talking about Malaysia, actually. And this is really nice to hear. And if I listen to you and you are mentioning the investment into the sector, the investment into the right part of the sector, then I would also like to add, I think Malaysia has a big opportunity in the high-value electronic components with the help of very strong software engineering capabilities, potentially from India. All right. So thank you very much, Kavan. It was really a very nice, engaging discussion, and I think there is a lot to take away from this. What stands out is that the future of automotive won't be shaped in isolation. It will be built through collaboration, learning what works, what scales, and what truly resonates with the consumer across countries, industries, and capabilities. I've been speaking with Kavan Mukhtyar, PwC's India Automotive Leader. I'm Patrick Ziechmann, and this has been Tomorrow on Track.